Supreme Court Advocates on Record Association v. Union of India. The case of Supreme Court Advocates on Record Association v. Union of India, decided in 2016 and reported as 2016, 5 SCC 1, is one of the most important constitutional judgments in Indian legal history. This case is popularly known as the Fourth Judge's Case. It mainly deals with the appointment of judges to the Supreme Court and High Courts, and the independence of the judiciary, which is a basic feature of the Indian Constitution. The case arose after the Parliament passed the 99th Constitutional Amendment Act, 2014, and enacted the National Judicial Appointments Commission, NJAC, Act, 2014. The purpose of these laws was to replace the collegium system of judicial appointments with a new body called the National Judicial Appointments Commission, NJAC. The NJAC included members from the executive and civil society along with judges, and it was claimed that this system would bring more transparency and accountability in judicial appointments. Background of the case. Earlier, judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts were appointed through the collegium system, where senior judges played a decisive role. In 2014, Parliament passed the 99th Constitutional Amendment Act and the NJAC Act, 2014, which created the National Judicial Appointments Commission. The NJAC included the Chief Justice of India, 2 senior judges, the Union Law Minister, and 2 eminent persons. The objective was to bring transparency and accountability in judicial appointments. However, many lawyers' associations, including the Supreme Court Advocates on Record Association, challenged the NJAC before the Supreme Court. They argued that NJAC violated the independence of the judiciary, which is part of the basic structure of the Constitution of India. Issues before the court. The main issue before the court was the constitutional validity of the National Judicial Appointments Commission, NJAC, which was introduced to replace the collegium system of judicial appointments. The main issue before the court was whether the 99th Constitutional Amendment and the NJAC Act were constitutionally valid, or whether they violated the basic structure of the Constitution, particularly the principle of judicial independence. Another issue was whether the collegium system should continue or be replaced by NJAC. Another crucial issue was whether the replacement of the collegium system by the NJAC diluted the primacy of the judiciary in the appointment of judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts. The court examined whether giving a significant role to the executive and non-judicial members in the NJAC amounted to executive interference in judicial appointments. The court also considered whether judicial independence is a basic feature of the Constitution, and if so, whether any constitutional amendment that weakens it can survive judicial scrutiny under the basic structure doctrine. A further issue was whether the presence of the law minister and 2 eminent persons in the NJAC, along with the veto power given to any 2 members, could lead to politicization of judicial appointments and affect the impartiality of the judiciary. Thus, the Fourth Judge's Case raised fundamental issues relating to judicial independence, separation of powers, constitutional supremacy, and the limits of Parliament's amending power, making it one of the most important constitutional cases in India. Judgment. In Supreme Court Advocates on Record Association v. Union of India, 2016, the Supreme Court delivered its judgment by a majority of 4:1. The court struck down the 99th Constitutional Amendment Act, 2014 and the National Judicial Appointments Commission, NJAC, Act, 2014 as unconstitutional. The court held that independence of the judiciary is a part of the basic structure of the Constitution. It observed that the NJAC system gave an important role to the executive and non-judicial members, which could lead to political or external interference in the appointment of judges. Such interference, according to the court, would weaken judicial independence and threaten fair justice. The court further ruled that judicial primacy in the appointment of judges is essential to protect the independence of the judiciary. The presence of the Union Law Minister and 2 eminent persons with veto power was found to be dangerous for judicial freedom. As a result, the court restored the collegium system for appointing judges to the Supreme Court and High Courts. However, The court also admitted that the collegium system had defects like lack of transparency and accountability. Therefore, it invited suggestions to improve the functioning of the collegium. In conclusion, the judgment protected constitutional supremacy, separation of powers, and judicial independence, making it a landmark decision in Indian constitutional law. Significance of the judgment. The judgment in Supreme Court Advocates on Record Association v. Union of India, 2016, is very important in Indian constitutional law. Its main significance lies in protecting the independence of the judiciary, which the court clearly held to be a part of the basic structure of the Constitution. This means that even Parliament cannot pass a law or amendment that weakens judicial independence. The judgment reaffirmed that judicial primacy in the appointment of judges is essential to ensure free and fair justice. By striking down the NJAC, the court prevented possible political or executive interference in judicial appointments. Another important significance is that the court reasserted the power of judicial review, showing that even a constitutional amendment can be struck down if it violates the basic structure. This strengthened constitutional supremacy. The judgment also led to the restoration of the collegium system, ensuring continuity in the judicial appointment process. At the same time, the court acknowledged the flaws of the collegium and opened the door for reforms to improve transparency and accountability. Overall, the decision strengthened separation of powers, safeguarded rule of law, and reinforced public confidence in the judiciary. It remains a landmark ruling for maintaining the balance between democracy and judicial independence in India. Conclusion. The decision in Supreme Court Advocates on Record Association v. Union of India, 2016, is a landmark judgment in Indian constitutional law. The Supreme Court clearly held that independence of the judiciary is a basic feature of the Constitution and cannot be weakened even by a constitutional amendment. By striking down the 99th Constitutional Amendment Act and the NJAC Act, the court protected the judiciary from executive and political interference. At the same time, the court accepted that the collegium system has shortcomings and needs improvement, showing a balanced and practical approach. This judgment strengthened judicial review, separation of powers, and constitutional supremacy. It ensured that courts remain free, impartial, and capable of delivering justice without fear or pressure. Therefore, the case stands as a strong reminder that constitutional values are above political convenience, making it extremely important for LLB students and Indian democracy as a whole.